Welcome back to our second half hour of Our Seattle. I'm Steve Soliz. Chief Meteorologist Shannon O'Donnell joins us now for our Ask Shannon segment. Earlier today on KOMO News, we asked you to send in your questions for Shannon related, of course, to the end of summer. So let's jump right into them. Our first question from Brittany Chavez. She wants to know, have we had the hottest day of the year already?
Yes.
Please say yes.
I am with Brittany here because, and you are too, I know that. We are just with you because we don't love heat. So this was the way, by the way, things look today in Connor, one of my favorite towns. This photo, courtesy of Lisa Ketchum. Pretty nice out there today, right? Yeah, no complaints this week. Most of us have been pretty comfortable. We call this Goldilocks weather when it's just right out there, and it certainly was today. We were in the 70s. But to Brittany's point, because everybody's heard we're about to heat up, you know, the hottest day so far of 2025 was July 16th. We hit 94. Too hot for me, too hot for Steve. I bet it's too hot for Brittany at that level too. Well, we're going to get right back in the range. We're going to see temperatures both Saturday and Sunday close to 90. So we might start inching up there. I think that 94 on July 16th will probably go down as the hottest of the year, but we're going to be right in the neighborhood as we head into this weekend.
At least
better
that's
for worse.
Some good news. So we'll take what we can get.
A little bit cooler, but not by much.
All right, next question from Mary Knowles. Are our summers getting hotter?
Yes, well, compared to 2021, which is the benchmark, you know, so far, that was it. That was when we had those series of days in the triple digits, that infamous 108 degrees because of the heat dome. But overall, and this is well documented at this point, the Earth is getting warmer. A lot of it fossil fuels and just a lot of people in a finite space putting out a lot of stuff. And so far, since the 19th century, we have been slowly warming up about 1.5, give or take a few degrees Celsius overall as a planet. So the trend, is for that pendulum to keep swinging and little by little getting warmer in the summers. We did experience it here a few years ago. Since then, you know, things ebb and flow, and we've been a little bit cooler than that, but we're hoping that we never make it to 108 degrees again in Seattle. That was the high point, but chances are, overall, we have been warming up, and we could see that all over again. Hopefully not anytime soon.
Agreed. All right, Shannon, let's check in from Emilio N, who wants to know, what is the difference, good question here, between the end of the meteorological and the astronomical season? Yeah,
because we get that question a lot. This has always been a thing, by the way, astronomical versus meteorological seasons. So let's just break down when fall is coming up, first of all. If you look at this graphic, you can see that the astronomical seasons, and Steve, this is kind of what we grew up with in school, where it happens that we head into the equinox for fall and spring. So when right at the equator, we're getting equal amounts of daylight, day and night. The summer solstice for us here in the northern hemisphere is when we get that really long day, and that happens in late June, and then we get the reversal, of course, in December, the so-called shortest day of the year. And the astronomical seasons are just where we are in the orbit around the sun. So I teach Atmos 101, among other things, at the University of Washington, so this is one of the big questions. Meteorological seasons have become more of a thing in recent years, just kind of like all those moons, you know, the wolf moon and the harvest moon, and all of a sudden every full moon has a name, both because of social media, just really took off. And meteorological seasons, more newfangled, they've always been a thing, but just becoming more mainstream and part of the general social lexicon, if you will. It just is September 1st, so that's coming up pretty soon. September 1st is the beginning of so-called meteorological fall. That goes through the end of November, and then meteorological winter begins December 1st and goes through January and February. Kind of actually matches the weather a little bit better because we're so far past the solstice or the equinox, as the case may be, depending on the season. It just kind of feels more like the appropriate season. So astronomical fall or autumn doesn't begin until late September, but meteorological fall is on deck right around the corner.
Okay. I actually kind of like that a little bit better.
Yeah, me too.
All right, Tina F wants to know, will we have an extended summer and, then not to be greedy, but lots of snow for the winter?
Lots of snow. A lot of people hoping for that. Well, here is a look at the NOAA extended forecast. So if we dive in here, the long range forecast here over the coming 6 to 10 days, and then the outlook there a couple of weeks in the future. If you joined us last week, remember what I said. I don't like long-range
Right, yeah.
forecasts, you know, from the groundhog, just as bad often as the Farmer's Almanac or even NOAA. This is just trying to get you a trend based on what the atmosphere is doing, what the oceans are doing. You know, we talk about La Nina and El Nino a lot. So far, if we go into the future there on the far right, so going several weeks in advance, Seattle and the Northwest looks like we're kind of near normal as we head into fall and winter in terms of our temperatures, and maybe a bit above normal for precipitation. We could use that because, you know, we were really low on snowpack and rainfall last year. So if this trend works out, you know, that would bode well for some lowland snow. But as I spoke about last week, long-range forecasts, even from NOAA, National Weather Service and whatnot, tend to be bunk and are, you know, falling apart more often than they are, or just as often as they turn out true. So we'll see. But, you know, we kind of got robbed last year. We didn't have a lot of snow.
Did.
So I think chances are we go in the other direction this season. Hopefully we get some lowland snow again for you.
But it's also why we have you on all the time, because it changes so much.
It definitely does. And, you know, 5 to 7 day forecasts are getting better and better all the time. Getting long range where you're trying to plan a wedding outside for next summer, you know, it is best to just look at climatology and see where things are going to stack up. But even that can fall apart. You know, we have rainy seafarers around here. That's usually our driest weekend of the year. And this time it was a little bit cool. So you never know. Fingers crossed we do have some lowland snow for you this time around.
Before we let you go, this weekend is going to be warm.
Yes, it is. Yep.
Okay.
We're talking about a lot of warmth. So, you know, to our first question, did we get the hottest stretch of the year? You know, we actually had the warmest day of the year at that 94, and we're hoping that we don't get anywhere in that neighborhood. But as far as a long stretch, this is it, because we're going to see 5, 6, 7 days in a row of 80s, if not 90s. So yeah, we'll talk about that on KOMO 4 News coming up at 11 o'clock. We have some extreme heat warnings and watches and a heat advisory to talk about as we head into this weekend.
Okay, Shannon, thank you.
Of course.
Always great.